Hey, what's up? My name is David Kwasnik for CG Plus, and today we're going to be creating this effect. So in this video, you see a ball hitting the cube, and the cube shatters in a very dynamic way. The way this was achieved using this plugin called Xplode. And this plugin is used to cut up objects into pieces which then can be put into MoGraph and MoDynamics to create really dynamic effects. The requirements for this plugin is Cinema 4D version 11, Thinking Particles, and MoGraph 2. This plugin is only like €12, so that's around $15, which is really affordable for what it can create. Alright, now I'm in Cinema 4D, and I'll show you what this plugin could do. So let's get a cube out, and let's scale up the cube to 500 by 500 by 500, and let's create a sphere and a floor. Let's put the cube up a little bit higher above the floor, and the sphere out over here, and let's line up the cube with the floor. So like right there should do it. And now in order to have more pieces cut up, we need to overlap the sphere with the cube. And the smaller the sphere is going to be, the more pieces you're going to get. So let's show you. So we have the sphere overlapping the cube. Now you can scale it down even more. And let's load the Xplode plugin. And now I'm going to use 100 particles or parts for the sake of demonstration. You can use as much as parts as you want. So I'm going to select the sphere and hit add. And you can see it created these red dots, which will represent the pieces. And the more we scale up, the bigger the pieces are going to be. Let's find it, and let's hit add, and I think that'll do it. And now we need to select the fracture object and select the cube and hit shatter. Now it shows you how much objects were created. We're going to hit clear, and we're going to close this off. Okay, so now let's set this up with MoGraph so we can get some nice results. So by I'm going to select the sphere and put it into a cloner object. By holding Alt and hitting control, the cloner object is going to put the sphere as a child for the cloner object. In the cloner object, we're going to just set it up the count for 1, and in the pieces, make sure it's set up for explode segments, not straight explode segments. Now let's add a rigid body tag. Control, click, and drag. In the pieces, we're going to set it to on collision. In the sphere, we're going to leave it as is. And in the cloner object, we're going to set it to immediately. And we're going to check this right here. And we're going to throw the sphere in the positive direction. So that's the positive X. And we're going to throw it maybe like 500 meters. So when we throw it, let's get it right. Maybe 1,000 will do. So we'll throw it, and you can see that we have little pieces and then huge pieces. Let's throw it in this direction. We're gonna put it right here. Then we'll also increase this to 1,000 maybe. Let's move it a little bit right here. Okay, so that's good. Let's go into the collision to the tag and set the collision to 2, and for the sphere 2 also. And when we hit play, you can see that the smaller pieces get hit and the bigger stay their own place. We could also increase the mass for this one. So we hit 50, maybe we have a greater impact, and it does. So you can really see how nice this plugin is with creating these kind of simulations with MoGraph. It looks okay. Okay, now that we know how this plugin works, let's try to recreate what I did over here. So we have a sphere hitting the cube, and the cube shatters, and then it reveals the C++ logo. So we're going to create a cube, and we're going to set up to maybe 400 by 400 by 400. And we're going to do the same thing by creating more pieces using the sphere, but this time we're going to start from here. So let's scale it down. Let's just like overlap it right there. We got the middle part of the side over here. So now we go plugins, Xplode, and I'm going to use 100 for the sake of the demonstration. You could use how much you want. So I select the sphere and hit add, and just continuing to scale the sphere up. And now I'm going to select the cube and the fracture object and shatter. And so we clear the cache, and we could delete the trash. This is the original cube that we just made. We could delete that because we don't need it anymore. So now let's scale down the sphere, and also we'll put this into a cloner object, holding Alt, putting it as a child, count 1, and this time we're not going to create no floor, we're just going to have it in this kind of perspective. So let's create a camera object, scene camera, and we're not going to use the camera yet. So let's give this a rigid body tag, this one too, and remember we're going to set this to explode segments, and we're just going to select on collision, and this one to immediately. I'm just going to throw it at the positive X, so around 5,000, no, 500. What we're going to do is going to go into project settings. I'm going to set the gravity to 0, so when the simulation happens, the particles aren't falling, the pieces aren't falling down, they're just going to expand out. Let's add some mass to the sphere. Let's hit it like to 100 maybe, so the cube doesn't, the sphere doesn't really bounce back. It's just gonna continue on going. Now, alright, so now we need to extrude the text. Let's just get it out of this null object, and we're just going to put it into an extrude NURBS, and so we're just going to drag it in. I'm just going to move this over here so we could have a nice view of it, and we need to check this parameter right here so it extrudes the CG2. We could increase the extrude to 40. I think we could scale them both down. We really need that big of text. You could give it some bevel, maybe like 2 or 1, somewhere around there. And then constrain. Hopefully that doesn't look bad. Alright, I think we'll just have 1. And maybe that'll look a little bit better. Yeah. You could increase the steps to maybe 2. So we have a nice bevel. Alright, that looks nice. And let's position this. And actually we're going to put this into a rigid body. We're going to give it a rigid body tag 2. And we're going to set it as a static mesh. So like if the pieces go next to the text, it won't go through it, it's just going to bounce off of it. So let's position this. It needs to be behind the cube, right here. And so let's just lower it a little bit, and we're going to also rotate it slightly. So when you look at it through the camera, it's going to line up perfectly. Alright, that's nice. Okay. So now we're gonna start giving it materials. Alright, so now we're gonna light our scene and texture. For the lighting, we're gonna use this lighting rig that Grayscale Gorilla made, and we're gonna mainly focusing on the softbox right here. This softbox is probably going to be like our main light, and like we're going to put it far off. Oh no. I'm going to select this, and then we're going to put it like this. It's going to put it far away, like down there. And we just have to position this the right way. And in the softbox, we're going to go into softbox controls and just tint this a little bit with some purple. Purple, pink. Let's scale it up. We're not gonna use any shadows. And let's see how it looks like without nothing. Let's also add a light, and this light is basically going to be used in After Effects for our flare. And this is not going to affect our scene in any way. We're just going to bump this light intensity to 0. and we're just gonna have it like off to the side, so like in After Effects we're gonna be able to see it just a little bit off. And let's just add one more light, and this one is actually gonna light the scene. Let's just get out of the camera position. We're just gonna put it up top over here, somewhere around here. Oh, that's way too far. We want like a top kind of light somewhere around here. And again, we don't want shadows. We're going to use ambient occlusion for this. Let's create the texture for our sphere. We could use luminance. We're going to like, pump it down to like 4 or so. Specularity, let's crank that up. And just use that much specularity, I guess. Reflections, we're going to use Fresnel. We're not going to have crazy reflections. Just those subtle effects. And we still have to position our lights so it doesn't, maybe like this. I think that seems good for now. We're gonna change it later. Control dragging. I'm just gonna change the colors just a little bit for the cube. No luminance. Well, maybe a little bit, like 5. Reflections. We're gonna want a little bit more reflections on this one, but then we're just gonna blur it out like, I don't know, like 5 maybe. Blurry reflections takes really long to render, by the way. I guess we could crank up the specularity a little bit. I guess that's it for the cube. Now, where do we have our pieces? Right here. Alright, let's organize a bit. So this is our cube. This is our sphere. This is our CG Tuts text. And this is our lighting. We're going to put this into a group. Hit enter, and this is our lights. And this light is for a flare. And we could leave that here. This is our softbox. And also we need to create our texture for the text. I guess we could increase a bit more color for the cube, maybe like 10 luminance, somewhere around there, just to have some kind of nice color. Okay, let's go into our text and let's light it. I guess we could use luminance. Lower that down. Even more specular. Our reflections, of course. Fresnel. I'm going to use like 50%. Not that much. And let's just drag it onto our text. Alright, it's a bit too much reflections. Guess we could crank that down a bit and lower the specularity. Maybe that's going to be a bit better. We'll work on that a bit later. Maybe we could decrease the brightness of this one to 75. And let's go into the softbox and maybe decrease it to 75 also. Alright, now we're talking. Alright, so now we need to animate the camera so it can nicely reveal the logo. So we have the ball going inside the cube and it shatters. So in order to create this nice seamless transition, as soon as the ball hits and it comes like to this point, that's when we want to start the camera to animate, because if we start to animate the camera now, it's not gonna feel right. So we're gonna animate the camera starting from here. So we're gonna go into the position. We're just gonna set a keyframe by hitting Control, and then we're just gonna slowly start panning through the scene, somewhere around here, like around here maybe, and just set a keyframe, and it's gonna animate. I'm gonna come somewhere around here. Then we're going to select the sphere, not the sphere, the text. It's going to position it so it'll end up being somewhere around here. And then we're going to control click to set another keyframe. So let's see how that looks. It's not going to be perfect. Camera flies through. And let's go back to this position and just center it up, like somewhere around there, and just set the keyframes. And maybe we want to move this over just a little bit. We could add more force, more mass to the sphere so it can just have a little bit more impact. So let's increase it to like 300 maybe. And so like the reason why we're doing this so is that the pieces could shatter much quicker and expand more. So when the camera pans over, the pieces are not gonna just, fly at the camera. And it takes time to render. And boom. And we can add more velocity to this, like maybe like 700, 750, somewhere around there. And let's move the sphere off screen, like not the cube, the sphere, and just move it off screen. I think we could add more velocity to like maybe 1,000. So it comes quick, boom. And then it just pans over to the text. Alright, so now we need to zoom into the logo. So just go to this point in time. Let's just play forward. So right here, so it reaches this point, and so now we need to just go over here, maybe around frame 200, and just slowly pan into the text. Like this. And I mean, if you shatter if you cut up more pieces with the cube, you're gonna have more pieces, and it's gonna look a bit more exciting. But if you use less, it's really empty. It's not that really interesting. But you could use a random seed value by going to the project settings, go to expert, and just like changing, I don't know, it's like 220 or I don't know, doesn't really matter. You're gonna get a different result. So the camera starts panning now. Slowly comes in, and it zooms in slowly. Alright, see, we have more pieces at the end of the frame. So I guess we're ready to render from Cinema 4D to After Effects. We need to set up a couple of things before we do. We'll set the output to whatever resolution you want. I chose this one for some reason, I don't know why. Frames per second, I changed it to 24 frames per second. And also in the project settings, we have to set it to 24. No, 24, not 24/7. We also are gonna set up 3 object buffers. Object buffer 2, 3. Set this one to 3 and 2. Change the anti-aliasing to best. 2x2 is perfectly fine. We're gonna have an ambient occlusion. Set your output anywhere you want, just so you can locate it after. And also save an After Effects file project. So you just save it and just save it wherever you can find it later. Let's set up the object buffers. So you go to composition 1, and then composition 2, composition, and enable the third one. And I guess that's it. See you in the After Effects part of the tutorial.